Creme brulee here, pouring my 13 cents onto the pavement with a gurney to bring you the latest in lorry-flattened pedestrian news at 15 on the sixes. Weather sliding in is murky today, bringing cattle, leggings, microwelves, and the occasional stir-fry to the morning, turning into Dunning-Kruger turkey waddles in the mid-afternoon. Those commutes home are going to be instantaneous, thanks to teleportation governor in every mailbox, sending thought transmissions to its dark lord, Bewl. We never had an intuitive sense of how much of the electrical infrastructure was given over to the worship of Bewl, until the Commandant's Royal Report of 1972 laid the long-running scheme bare. It was a copper wire acquisition heist writ large, and we loaded barges full of brim vinegar and barley copper before and after the Measurement Committee's top-line barrel mastery division, and found significant discrepancies at every level of my popcorn basin. I was forced to resign with the rounded paw meat meal circumference of my father's disdainful cramping. I had a lengthy sign that I used to wave in a parabolic function, but it was so circular that even the world's least hip landlord couldn't shuffleboard his way to foaming interdependence. I quailed in the night like a heartworm exposed to moonlight, and I peacocked and pheasanted all over the place, and it was a worrisome St. John's wart of the mind. I unpacked my halberd and stood uneasy as it was floored into a dish repair saloon facade, each and every mooring and spiral suitcase. I stacked a Frolshing station with legumes, Monteclairs, and crimson traffic stickers. When the Daily Abatement Foundation reconciled that winter, a mechanic's overalls won first-in-show place in call at the wicker window. We wore foundation cunningly concealing our concealer, but we revealed too much in the off months, and the entire off-betting track was one canceled casino by weekends beginning. We tussled in the streets for months, but couldn't shake the stink gained thus. We repelled even the most vomit-inducing cretins, and knew we had to change our ways fast if we were going to learn the delicate art of being a vaporous sandalwood attaché case in the night near Brussels, nor away from it. We declined the insurance and then immediately smashed the item on the register's conveyor belt. Woe betide the sales technician whom, armed with a degree in law vapor and a kilojoule in medical dogma, escaped wincingly out of a hammer rind with 4 of your least impressive in-laws, ranting something about boiling away the surface of the moon to reveal the message from Jesus of Nazareth hidden beneath by Bonadestin monks in the late 1880s and nundis because they got some ladies involved too back then. Back before hoodwinkums told them they couldn't play tiddlywinks on Mars because of some fool talk about oxygen. This was when the folk of the cloth would stop at nothing to mentally massacre people with the Jesus shit. So they really spewed it forth, and soon brigade battalions of nasty stuff were zooming to the mooning on rocket boots, and packs of pure papau to get theyselves to thy moon, and create a kind of Jesus mural bigger than Idaho and Wyoming combined, and it were in full color too. So all the pigments of God could bring greater glory to his smiling visage. Locks aplenty. Bert, didn't we have Hezes for Goas holding heat shells against our grain, cause ain't not one moon missionary did come back from that task. No Mayan or lunar ladies ever did return to the earth world. They could only hope that their Jeesley artwork would inspire a whole new flock to gravitate to D. Gord. But in a final act of spiritual malice, evil demon Bewl worked his satanic Luciferian to tell thee, world, that there is a goy named Jeezy, and he lurve his riddle, biddy hire muns, we wingers. All der riddle brabies, sure, Dreesley lurve all der Ridley pot, og der G loive some drow, darsen bog brubbies, he Jesus la lurvies, deem her sure, he said lurve Jeesley, rentua schwer eat refi. I stock a shim film into a dwell hovel, and it shunted out a leaf pedestal. Clutching the latest ginkgo frond, I plugged it in. 47% match of clutch drudgery and bell whistling leather belts and copper ring reduction of the inverse. Sled beveling had clearly topped out at near 99.6664. We had to gut our calipers then and reduce disruption tendencies by a factor of 16 to note even the most ephemeral gains. Something had to be done. Squelch burning mollusk, disentangling or no. We had a vague notion our discus travails were about to come to a screeching conclusion, but we never let on our suspicions, and before too time trowel, burnage occurred more and more frequently amongst us. I started to spray my neighbors with a widened nozzle affixed to my bridges, and they clasped their rotisserie beads to their chest and delineated the stations of their floss, but to no avail. I struck them a light, and their ashes sailed aloft, and no tears were shed among the Frank and Riles. I riled up the Franco-Prussian army, and soon both James and Dave were streaking through the ranks, fired up about files and fishers. I crabbed a lobster into honorary leadership roles, but was rapidly buffeted by an impending sense of hard scrabble and lorry tottering, like we left off with at the beginning, but it had a sinister overtone of welding, polychromia, sidereal attestations, and mountebank cramping agency sinews. I crimped my dendritic salescapie aloft, and soon bugged out like a fish and chips weaving sedimentary follicle. I had a frequent urge to urinate freely, which peed out of me like a shrimp barnacle haste tabernacle. Can you truly claim to file freely in such estates? We would stare at chimps for predetermined lengths of time that nevertheless would stain a salvo in a cabling committee's chocolate chunks. But could such a saturation be sustained at length? My grain silo begged to differ, so I let it be pastel, and it howled to scorn, and so I cast it into the chastening dish. It was a ditchweed, silver fuel, fossil decrepitude leveling activity, which we all explored. We made a glass beach out of lightning bolts, but it hurt to walk on, so we smashed it into linguine, and before anyone could gurgle too thriftily, we boiled ourselves a rugged tank worth of shelving supply glue and mopping factory partitions that come from overseas. We reflected. What would it take to turn this mottled assortment of gelatinous grime dark panty patrol into its own fashionable lava-lobbing magma missile? A catapult worth of pastel demonstrations lined up mentally but refused to congeal into the kind of multimedia mode dissertation that Dr. Krembrenwethton demanded from her graduate students. Is there a whale blubber factorial supply soap vice president whom could blurb this hard copy? We asked this endlessly at late-night listening sessions with Steele, Watley, and Boyle, Gurman. He sherved Erse onto his hearse boat and made a flat beach off the Atlantic Isles with a crew of drained horse ladlers and traitorous mother-smothering junk munchers. I had held low opinions of same for many decades, but plowing them under with my sharp bike, I started to see their value. Pretty crap timing on that front, 'cause I had just murdered them all with a backhoe. But boy, seeing it from their side at least once before wiping them out was sure a real eye-opener for me, even as it was more of an eye exploder out of their header for them. I poop a lot on stage so that people never really know how bad the shows are. I want them to be so traumatized by the performance that they never even stop to consider I might have undies overflowing with doo-doo blasties. But I know and I poop even harder, and except for one time on night 2 at the Red Rocks, not one doo-doo dookie chip plopped out. So I want to give all the flowers to the lady who designed my onstage diapers, because they really hold da dookie pupies hoard. I danced around the other night, and invisible wire chickens didn't disclose property properly, and I based my own light show on the console saltpeter extraction diaphragm. I poured essential oils and needless liniments all over my repulsive curdling synchrony. I had a salacious parallelogram bordering my tessellation fairy, buoyed somewhat by the Northampton Castle Annulment Act of 1945. Candlelight only goes so far for shack crystals, and that's why we have strung up the entire hectameter of the perimeter of garish gates and ghoulish gardens with top nickel cream variety varnish harmonies and creature pastes that hold the gruel we spare aboard tackling, peasantry, and harmonica-fueled violence in equal measure. Would that this soilfish cream could salve my soul? I surrender saliva to the anteaters and feed them the sweet nectarine of my necrotic nature, and all the prowling pine cones of process factorization have called home to roast. And you are just roping what ye have seen, and sowing what you rue, and woe betide the day where coffin shells and conkle muscles all in a row because he thought his maid was pretty, and then he had to get divorced because he shouldn't shoot his shots in such directions. That was his ex-missis's considered opinion, leastyways. I crawled slowly toward Vortex 19, soaping up my neck for the transition and hoping for mystic clamshells and destructive pizza rallies overthrown by God and boiled by the secret Lord beneath. I had a prune reveal at 6, but scrapped it at my manager's suggestion to deploy my foil-wrapped fencing swords. Assuring mutual destitution, I plunged my hammer back, and soon even the toilets of my foes overflowed with the effluvia we labored many decades to produce. We craft fee schedules and feces, hectic crayon canyons filled with fits and britches. I pounded out a secret rhythm, and it soon boiled my blood to bits on the sand with one hand on the Holy Bible, and most of my fingers, in fact, wriggling through all the holes, making it into a fax-handle candle wax investment hatchet and opportune waistcoat hatching dentition billiard export truncheon. I didn't think it seemed economically sound, but it did seem geopolitically vision, so I pursed my wallet and pumped my eggs into an instrumentation hash and crept it loudly in the dirt like a consummated vow. I primped my plump laxative pumps and bumped up against the cart ministry Eagle House and held hose for anonymity against a phalanx of sidewinding trickster and mathematics hustling hedge reduction blessings. Why develop egg astronomy when you can simply poach the best and brightest from Bridge Castle flume wobbling crabbing? And if we web the foil lining sufficiently with the proper gold-greased finger fidgets, we could counteract its own counterinsurgency with a simple incrementation viewfinder mounted to the margins. We need all flagrancy insulated from calm heatlessness, or the missile launch pads have more or less a crease and lurch in common with with the diseased purse strings of our overheated hamper commitment specialists that, come to think of it, haven't even shown up for work today. Do you think they world work widely and abroad, or do they mock with churlish spittle against you? I don't demarcate or claim to spray.